is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
Okay, JJ Wing, we are like a week and change away from free agency. We are combine numbers are coming through, affecting where people are going to talk about where guys are going. I have a league where people are like trading around picks, trying to get some of these guys. It's draft fever season. So if you got some extra draft capital and you want to make some bank, this is really the time of year. In the fall, you're throwing away a first for doesn't matter who. Now, that first is worth GameStop stock, right? It's moving up in the world.
Yeah, I mean, right now, all these guys, especially right after the combine, the combine's really tough these days, or especially this year, because a lot of these guys, I feel like they don't even want to really do the combine anymore. They're just there for mainly like the medicals and talk to some of the team. I mean, some of these guys run do the combine, like some most of the lower ranked guys. I kind of want to be seen a little more, but I feel like it's getting less and less every year for these guys, to even go out there and actually put in some effort at the combine.
I mean, they're running small NFL teams, these colleges, and they're making more than
Yeah.
all the practice squad guys to not play football, like the Manning kid who hasn't done diddly squat, but he's already made more money than some of the rookies will on the rookie contract. So he might just stay in college for the next 20 years and be loading, ready to go. But
Yeah.
today we're going to hit some of the college stuff. Before we get there, a couple of quick hits as we go through a little scare. And if you were lucky in a league where somebody likes to jump to conclusions, Xavier Worthy's girlfriend apparently is not a very nice young lady, and he's the one that ends up getting arrested. But some people are starting to freak out. Yesterday's sleeper was ablaze. Turns out he is released, good to go. No files will be charged. So for Xavier Worthy, people, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, but the fact that you put yourself in this position at all, I mean, whether it's your fault or whether it's not your fault, you've got to be. I feel like you got to be a little more careful if you're in the NFL. I know
Oh,
things
you did. We
happen.
talked about it in the car yesterday.
Things happen. I know I'm not in the NFL, but I mean, this kind of stuff's never happened to me. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I feel like you. I mean, whether you're an NFL player or not. I mean, you you can avoid this stuff. I mean, this isn't stuff that just going to happen to you. This stuff can be avoided, and the fact that you put yourself in this position with the ability to have to pass up giving up millions of dollars, I feel like you got to be a little more responsible. I mean, of course, it happens all the time in sports, but I feel like you just got to be a little bit more responsible. And if you got a girlfriend that's not good, that's you. I mean, that's on you. I mean, you picked this girl, you're with this girl, so you know how she's acting. If she's going to put your NFL career in jeopardy, then you got to pitch her to the curb, man. She's not worth it. You're in the NFL. I'm sure you can find another girl within the next week or so that's probably better than her. So, I mean, you got to be a little smarter, man.
That's what ended my punting career in the NFL. Oh man, it was a
Yeah.
travesty. But ironically, about the same time, the Chiefs gave Hollywood a contract where he's not going to reach it because of the incentives. 7 million base salary for Hollywood Brown, who is Hollywood Brown. So quite intriguing in that front. Looking at another quick trade, you had Geno going to the Raiders. Pete Carroll's got his favorite quarterback in the world, with rumors that the Seahawks might be one of those teams after your boy Sammy D. What do you think about Sam Darnold? Well, what do you think of Geno in Vegas? Probably not about as much as I do. What do you think about Sam Darnold going to Seattle with JSN and probably not DK because they're lowering the cost on him as well. So there's a lot in this story going on.
Yeah. I'd probably prefer Sam Darnold over Geno Smith. I'm not a big Geno Smith fan. There's not a lot, a lot. I mean, honestly, these teams are probably I feel like they're pretty much even as far as talent goes on offense. There's not really a whole lot on either team. I mean, the Raiders got Brock Bowers. Seattle's got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like I said, DK is going to get traded. I don't know. I mean, I'm scared of Sam Darnold. I mean, he's only had one good
One
year in
good
his
year.
career. Geno Smith. I mean, he's been he had one good year, and he's just been average after that. Of course, his best year was under Pete Carroll, so who knows? Like I'm not really going after either one of these guys. I mean, I'm probably going to stay away from both of them. If I had to choose, I'd probably pick Sam Darnold just because I like Sam Darnold better than Geno Smith. And he's younger. Uh, that's pretty much about it. I mean, I don't think either one of these guys are going to be top 15 type quarterbacks. We'll see, but who knows? But I mean, people are making a big deal out of Geno Smith, like he's like the second coming of Jesus or something. They're like, oh, it's such a big trade for Seattle. I mean, what's Seattle really losing? I mean, is Geno Smith really that good? I mean, you can get that he's untradeable, you can't get rid of, and people are all up in arms. I mean, let's be real. It's Geno Smith, man. He's easily replaceable.
Yeah, it's just funny seeing like the Raiders like we want to get better. Gino.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
cool,
it,
dude.
apparently no one wants DK because he wants to get like 30 million a year. So the price was at one point like a first and a third. Now they're meeting in the middle with the second. We'll see who sniffs and takes it. Last just quick hit. I'm sure I'm missing a couple things, but Mike Gesicki re-signed with the Bengals, which changes a lot of mock drafts I'm seeing, which had them taking the Penn State kid. So he finally found somewhere where they like to pass to him. And Zach Ertz back with the Manders as well. So tight ends, yeah, baby. That's about all we got. So JJ Wang. Oh, I do have one more. Sorry, I forgot about priors. Great news for us Derrick Henry owners. Ravens re-sign Ronnie Stanley. So the line's going to still have their anchor, going to have their tank on the side, which nobody's going to pay attention. But everybody, as you're listening, if you got a running back and you see all the linemen get traded or not re-signed to your team, trade that dude. Think about the fact if the Eagles lost three of four of their linemen, Saquon's going to be good, but he's not going to be Saquon. So just keep an eye on that kind of stuff as we're going through free agency and re-signings. So JJ Wang, rock and roll, college man.
I don't know about college, man. I mean, I watched a little bit, not a whole lot. But like I said, we was talking about the course of combine was last week. A lot of these guys just, I mean, the only ones that really participate are like the guys that have questions. All the guys mainly in the top rounds of the draft, they do a little bit here and there, but it's not really all that spectacular. But we'll start at quarterback. I mean, these are probably I don't know. I think probably all these guys will go in the second round, I guess. There's three different types of quarterback. Of course, we got Jackson Dart, 21 out of old. He's 21 years old, out of Old Miss, 6'2", 223. Played pretty well at Old Miss, considering that it's Old Miss. He's more of the dual threat type of quarterback. He doesn't. I mean, he's able to run. I think he had 2,000 yards in his career, somewhere around in there. So I mean, that's pretty impressive, and he can throw. I know he's been in competition as being maybe the QB2, but the way people are talking about Shador Sanders just constantly sliding, now he's out of the first round. So, so who knows? But Jackson Dart, I mean, I'm kind of interested in Jackson Dart. Honestly, he's probably my favorite quarterback. We'll see how that goes. And then we got Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. I wouldn't say he's a dual threat because he's not a great passer, a great runner. He had almost 1,000 yards rushing. The big thing for him going into the draft was he had super small hands. At the
Oh
Senior
no, not
Bowl,
again.
they was like at the Senior Bowl they were like at eight. They were 8 3/4. So anytime you have a quarterback with under 9 inch hands, they almost never succeed. The big fuss was with Joe Burrow when he had 9 inch hands and everybody was up in arms. Then miraculously, when he gets to the combine, he ends up with 9 3/4 inch hands. So his hands grew like half an inch
Those
somehow.
gloves, those gloves, they're magic.
Not really sure how that works. So that probably helps him out a little bit. But like I said, this is a guy that's going to rely on more of his athleticism. Probably not going to be drafted too high in the draft. And then we got Quinn Ewers, probably the biggest name out of the bunch. Just he's not much of a runner, pretty decent passer here and there, pretty sporadic, but he just never really lived up to the hype at Texas. I mean, the talk all year was like, hey, we should probably start, Arch Manning. But the coach, stuck by him, did okay. There was some thought maybe he would come back to college. That's saying something there, but he did end up, going to the draft. I can't see him being drafted overly too high either. I think Jackson Dart is definitely the best out of this bunch. But I mean, if you're picking one up in the second round, I think it's gonna be Jackson Dart. Then it's probably Quinn. Well, then it's probably gonna be Milrow for the rushing, and then it's gonna be Quinn Ewers. But when you're looking at quarterbacks in the second round, are you taking a risk at quarterback in the second round, or are you trying to find, like a running back or a QB?
I think it depends upon team needs. Like you look, could Jackson Dart be drafted right there around like n not gonna like it, but Will Levis territory? Like I think
Yeah,
he looks like
absolutely.
he
Yeah.
could he should be better than Will Levis from what I'm
Well, I
seeing.
hope
But
so.
some of the one guy on NFL.com actually had him going number three. Like they're like it's not gonna happen, but they had him three to the
Yeah.
Giants. So heck, if he's going to the second round, round two, pick three. There's the Giants. Round two, pick one. Right there is the Titans. They're doing it
Yep.
again, possibly with a kid who looks like, I mean, on the one of his comps that makes me almost immediately in love with him is Bo Nix. If this dude is a second coming to Bo Nix, like they compare like their games one, has got like 94% comparison to Bo Nix. I'm like, oh baby, baby. Whereas Jalen Milrow, they have him compared to Malik Willis. Loved Malik Willis, but I saw what happened. So if you want to get me to like a guy, compare him to Bo Nix, and you got it. But yeah, excuse me. But Dart, it would be interesting to see. Like he goes to the Jets, he's dead to me because they just like to
Oh
ruin
yeah, yeah.
people's careers. But going to the Giants with Malik Neighbors, he could come out of this as the guy I would want to draft in this class, as opposed to any whoever goes to the Giants should have whatever quarterback should have the upper handle and be in the QB1 in this class because he's got a stud all ready to throw to, and that Theo Johnson kid's not a joke at tight end, and our boy Tyrone Tracy in the backfield. It's just a matter of if he gets killed by that line. So, I mean the jury's out on Milrow as he was on a lower Alabama team than we usually see. So he's in the rebuilding Alabama as you're going up, and Quinn Ewers, he was supposed to be the bee's knees in Texas football. I mean, he still threw more.
Yeah,
He
he
had
was
better
okay.
stats this
But
year than before, and he was able to keep the prodigy off the field, the guy who were aforementioned and making more money than anyone to like not play football. So he must be good enough that he's keeping. I mean, if Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the greatest thing in the world, I thought Manning was the next thing. Like people have been talking about him since high school, but maybe not. So that makes me curious for him as well as to is he could be that guy that sort of quietly sneaks into the pros and nobody's really excited for that all of a sudden he more or less Russell Wilson's the league because Russell Wilson, I mean that might be a good comp there looking at how he just sort of slow and steadily went across. I mean he had all those years at State, then went to Wisconsin and came into the draft and Wilson was what a fourth, third, somewhere in there.
third, I think.
Yeah, so I was looking at that the other day actually, but that would be probably a good comp for him. So I'm there. You're doing a crapshoot anyway.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're drafting anybody who's more or less not a lineman of any sort in the first two rounds anyway, like other guys are like, hey, we've seen guys that were so good, corner, safety, receiver, running back, and all of a sudden, poop. Running backs are less likely if they're getting drafted that early, except for Clyde Edwards-Helaire apparently. Or we were watching an old game last night with Rashad Penny,
Sean
guys.
Penn.
It was a 2019 Seahawks, and it made me think. Look how long Marshawn Lynch has not been in the league. I mean, he was out of the league before COVID. That's like two lifetimes ago, which was just
Yeah.
insane to watch.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's not a very strong quarterback class. It's a little better than like the Malik Willis quarterback class,
Bad.
but yeah, and it's worse than all the others. So I mean, if you need a quarterback, this probably isn't the one. Isn't the draft? That's going to fill that need. Um,
I did see Riley Leonard yesterday at a conference I was at.
nice.
Did a little interview.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he to me, he's like JJ McCarthy part two. Cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Good
I don't
dude,
know.
really good human, but I'm
I don't know
not
what your hate. I don't know what your hate of JJ McCarthy is so much, man. Jeez, what's up with that?
I'm not excited for him. I don't he's not Caleb Williams, so we're good there. I'm just not excited for him. Like I think there'll be guys that get chances to start, but probably will end up either being Mendoza level, like lower quarterbacks, or really good career backup kind of deals. So that's where I see them flowing.
Yeah, no, just remember, not there's only 12 QB ones. Not everybody can be one. I mean, there
There's
is.
32 NFL starters, and I don't think they're really those should be those in that
Oh
32.
yeah, you're right. Going to the heart of the draft here, we've got running backs, just running backs for days. We'll start with actually we'll just start with your guy first. We'll go with Cam Scadaboo out of Arizona State, one of the older running backs in the league. And coming out of the draft, he's 23 years old, so he's played a lot of college football. 5'9", 219. So he's like a bowling ball out there. He had a lot of carries, 293 yards, 1,711, 293 carries, 1,700 yards, and 21 touchdowns. So the production's there. He's just what kind of running back is he going to be? I mean, I guess you could probably think maybe somebody like Mike Allstott. Maybe Mike
That's what I was
Allstott was
going.
Mike Allstott is a little bigger, but in that mold, he's probably not going to catch a lot of balls. He doesn't have like great vision out there, running up and down the field. He's not fast. So I'm not really sure how that translates to the NFL. I mean, we'll see. Probably not going to play a lot of special teams, so that's probably going to hurt him there. I just can't see this guy getting a lot of run. I mean, I know you like him a lot,
I don't
but
say
your
a
thoughts
lot.
on
He
thoughts,
was fun to
thoughts
watch.
yeah, it's fun to watch, I guess. I didn't watch a whole lot of him. Really wasn't that really excited about him. You didn't really hear too much about him until like the end of the season, and during the playoff run. But I mean, he gets drafted, he get an opportunity. You might get a year or so out of him. You never know. You got any specific thoughts on Scadaboo?
No, not really. It was just fun because he was one of the few games I was paying attention to this year. They just kept giving him the rock over there. I forget which game I was watching. It's like, here, when you're playing, just give him the rock. Okay, cool. Because isn't he the guy that had like a receiving? I forget what that football game was, but he just scored a lot of points
Yeah,
if he did college fantasy. But he also was in Arizona State, so I think he's a guy that I'm excited in a fun kind of way, but
yeah.
probably he's not a guy that I'm going to go, hey, I'm trading up in this draft to grab him. Or I mean, if I'm sitting there in the fourth round with my really good team and I got to pick, sure, third round. Like basically after the first round of if there's anybody good, I'm drafting a running back and a running back and then a running back and then a running back, and I'll trade for receivers and other things because running backs have a better chance of playing year one. So if he's somewhere where there's not three guys in front of him, he might get to touch the ball. He could end up surprising us. He could. I mean, Mike Allstott. You say that name, and now you got me back in love. You got me in love with Case Cat. He was Cam. He was one of my favorite players of all time. Just watching him in those big shoulders, just running through it. But I always like to imagine guys like this just putting on a little meat and becoming a fullback. We need NFL fullbacks. That's what usually like. But it's not going to happen. Nobody runs with fullbacks except like two teams in the league. So.
Yeah, it's hard. It's not in today's NFL. So we'll go from one of the older guys to one of the younger guys in the draft. 20 years old. We got Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. A little on the smaller side, 5'8", 200.
The Giants.
So that's kind of sketchy there, but he did hit the 200-pound mark. He had 258 carries, 1,491 yards, and 22 touchdowns. He did this in the SEC, so I mean that's got to mean a little something. The SEC is probably one of the NFL ready leagues. That's what people say. But I mean, he looked good. I mean, like 20 years old, still young, and he can do this in college. I think he's probably going to be top 5 running backs drafted. So I mean, I think that's gonna help his stock out a lot. Speed's okay. I think we're somewhere in like the mid fours. I think I'm not 100% sure.
I had him here
Um,
second.
but like I said, the only thing that's going to work against him is that he is
Four
five
three
eight.
five.
Yeah, 4'3". So I mean, it's pretty good for NFL running back. It's only same height as Ashton Genty, 12 pounds lighter. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for Dylan Sampson. Being only 20 years old, like I said, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And if you get in on him early, I mean, it might take a year or two, but he's one of these guys, say like a Tyrone Tracy got the opportunity, James Robinson got the opportunity. Like he's the guy that if he gets that opportunity, he's going to take it and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting some hype from Matt Miller at ESPN. I was just finding some stuff like they have him as like a top 75 player in the
Yeah.
draft. So you're looking second round, early third, and you get that in running back capital. That's a value. Like realistically, an RB drafted in the first round's a black unicorn, more or less. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. You get a running back drafted in the second and third, that's like a first round running back. So that's where you're looking at right now. And these, I mean, the earlier in the second, the more you would think they would get. There's been some weird exceptions recently, but coming out of SEC, as you're saying, everything there sort of hits it the just barely 200. So he could have drank
Yeah.
a cup of salt that morning and put some water in him. So he could be 198 pounds. You never know. Some of these, I mean, some of these numbers. So I mean, he's falling into that realm. Like we're going past. Like I think you get the top ones, the top couple there. Like, okay, I know these guys should be pretty good because they're beefy. They catch the ball. And then you get these guys in the middle. It's like which way are they going to fall? Where are they going to land? But ideal situation could get him some. I mean, it'd be cool. Like we live here, pair him in the backfield with Brian Robinson, let him
Yeah.
learn from Eckler. In 2 years, you got a decent running back there that's going to be with a young core and could step up. That'd be a pretty gnarly pairing.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years he's only 22, and so I mean,
Yeah.
he's just kind of he would just be starting entering like that prime territory for running backs at 22 to 25 age. 2 years of experience in the NFL. I mean, I think he's set up for pretty good success. Of course, all team dependent though.
Yeah.
Next guy with 21 year old Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. This is a pretty big kid. I mean, we're talking from one of the bigger running backs in the draft, 6'1", 224. So I mean, he's got the size, speed's okay. He can catch. I mean, he's not. None of these guys are really great receivers. Um, so I mean, so that's something. But again, receiving running backs in college
Mm,
really don't exist like that. I mean, so
yeah.
it's kind of hard to gauge whether or not these guys can catch. But like I said, 6'1", 224, 240 carries, about 1,500 yards and 21 touchdowns. I mean, these guys scored a lot of touchdowns on all three of them so far. But yeah, I think in the right position, I think this guy probably stands the best chance out of all these guys to probably start right away. So I mean, if he's kind of in a position to where he lands with a team that he can actually compete for that starting running back, I think there's a pretty good chance that this guy could probably take over that spot. If not in the beginning of the season, maybe 3 weeks in, I think his talent ultimately wins out.
Yeah. Dude's a pile of beef. He's like
Yeah.
a standard Iowa kind of area player. I mean, imagine if his uniform looks exactly like it does right now. He lands in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because they're gonna probably move on from Najee. They want. I mean, he's that guy. He's your plotter. He's not gonna win you a game. So get a younger Najee, guy you're gonna run between the tackles on a team that's gonna run. I mean, basically, we're looking in the draft the two guys that are gonna rise farthest up a running back board. Whoever Dallas drafts and whoever Pittsburgh drafts, because they're the
Yeah.
two running back needy teams. That and Pittsburgh's a team that no matter what's going on, Tomlin makes running backs look. He made Najee look decent,
Okay.
yeah,
Decent. Yeah.
like he because Najee was not great, but he made him look. He was great in college, but he hasn't played great in the pros, but he made him look decent.
Yeah.
So put this sack giant potato
He's a
country boy in there, and
he's a big guy.
he running over people. It's good. I mean, that would be fun to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I think this guy's probably going to be drafted probably in the upper tier, mid to second round, the
It's
second round.
interesting.
So I think a lot of these running back. I think the second round is going to be running back heavy this year. Like I said, because the first round is just going to be all linemen, offensive, defensive linemen, and then that second and third round, like you said, is where you're going to put a running back in behind. And the third guy, we got kind of a hometown favorite here, Bashul Tootin. Is crazy combine numbers, super fast, with the fastest running back. I think he ran a three. What was that? 3.9 something. Was it three? Can't remember.
A
Was that in the
three?
three?
You can't run a
Uh,
three.
well, it was like right under four, like 3.9, something like that. I knew it was in the low
He
high
ran a
high
three
two,
nine.
but
No one's run a
yeah,
3 9. Like 4.3 is the record.
I'm pretty sure. Was it? I thought it was in the threes. Maybe I was wrong. But he's 5'9", 206 pounds, 183
Four
carries.
three two. It was a four three
Oh,
two. So
four
it
three.
was
Oh,
in that was in the records of
okay,
combines.
yeah, 4.32. I was thinking, all right, my bad. So yeah, 1,159 yards and 15 touchdowns. Again, this guy can't really catch a lot of balls, but like at Virginia Tech, I mean, Virginia Tech's known for producing pretty solid running backs over the years. This is another one, like I said, one of the faster running backs in the draft. Production was okay. It is Virginia Tech, so we'll see how that goes. But I think his speed, a lot of teams are going to fall in love with that. Kind of like maybe like an Isaac Garindo from last year. Like Isaac
Ooh.
Garindo ran a crazy fast speed, and that kind of vaulted him, up the ladder, and he ended up getting drafted by the 49ers. And and there's actually a couple games where he's able to produce. I mean, it couldn't be that fancy
He was
relevant,
in
but
49ers though. We could have produced
yeah,
in 49ers
true,
uniform.
true, true, true. I mean, I agree, but I mean, this could be like with that kind of speed, though. I mean, you put him in, a decent line. I mean, he catch the corner or something like that. But do you know much about Tootin at all?
Not really. I mean, you just look at him from a body form there. I mean, 5'9", so he's not overly tall, but he hits that he's
Yeah,
206, so he doesn't have salt weight in him.
yeah,
So
yeah,
for the to be at 206 and still running that fast, that's going to add a little bit to him. Like usually the fast guys, you're talking those little scat backs that are what a buck 90.
yeah.
They're those guys you're worried about because they're over there. But to have the size and a little bit of the speed there, he could be a sneaky guy coming into the combine. Because yeah, Tech's been down for a handful of years, but this dude still, the still he had the last year was not 2 years ago wasn't good. I mean, his 2022 was his money year. Where was he at that year? Wasn't VT. Um,
No, I can't.
on my I'm looking to see where he was at. But the and then he came into Virginia Tech and had to get his feet wet last year, and then he finally got NC North Carolina A&T. This year I mean, he had a bajillion touchdowns like everybody, 1,100 yards on a team that was new Virginia Tech, not the old Tech of Vic times. So he could be an interesting pickup. Not enough knowledge personally, like the other guys I've heard of and stuff. But he could sneak himself. Like you said, he could sneak himself up based upon his speed. So I mean, we're looking Raiders will draft him, possibly the Raiders, and then after that, there's a good chance maybe the Raiders will draft him because he's fast. That's in honor of Al Davis. Like this is the Al Davis pick, wherever we take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So watch out for him. So I mean, that's the running backs. I feel like all those running backs probably in your fantasy drafts are probably all going to be picked in the second round. Like it's going to be quarterbacks and running backs pretty much be loading up in
Yeah.
the second round, and then after that, then you'll pick the receivers. So speaking of the receivers, I got three of them here. I got Luther Burden out of Missouri. His last year wasn't great. I agree. He only had 600, I think about 600 yards. He's like 6 foot, 200 pounds, so a little on the smaller side. But it's 2023. If you go back and watch, I mean, they looked very, very good um, in 2023. Like Missouri just wasn't very good last year. I mean, that all around they just looked bad. But if you look at the 2023, I know that's hard to do when you 2023 you look good and then you have a bad year that kind of leaves a sour taste in people's mouth. But I mean, like some of these colleges just aren't college powerhouses, and they go through cycles where one year they'll be good, one year they'll be bad. But I mean, if you have a good year in college, I mean, at least that says that you're able to play at that play at that level. I mean, like I said, he is a little on the smaller side, so I mean that can scare you a little bit. But the next, I'll go take the next receiver with him, and that's Matthew Golden out of Texas. Again, a little smaller, 5'11", 191. This was one of the fastest guys in the draft. I know he ran in the low threes. I'm pretty
No, no, he ran a 4.29.
fortunate. I mean, I keep
Nobody has
saying low
threes. You
threes,
got
four,
threes
low
on the
fours.
mind today.
I got threes on. I don't know why.
Four
I don't know
threes
why I
like
get.
that, super fast
Yeah,
speed.
yeah. My bad. So 4.23. So like he was one of the fastest guys as far as wide receivers in the draft. He was faster than the guy that said his teammate Isaiah Bond, who said he
Oh,
was going to run. He was going to be Xavier Worthy's time.
he had a
Um,
4.39.
yeah, so that didn't really work out the way he thought it was going to be. But like Matthew Golden, 5'11", 191. I mean, still a little smaller. But over these last few years, like the smaller wide receivers have actually performed decent in the NFL with the way the NFL is trending towards these days. Are you interested in the smaller receivers, or are these guys too small? Are you looking just for like the bigger archetype?
In it depends what the team's gonna do with him because I'm looking through here stuff on Golden and trying to figure out why he is ranked higher than say, even Burden, who everybody's scouting him goes, yeah, Burden, I mean, he's over 6 foot tall, so he's bigger than Golden by an inch, but he ate Golden for breakfast. He's 15 pounds heavier, so there's a little more meat to him. So he gets popped in the middle. As long as it's not his knee, he'll have a little more into him, and he's not your Devonta Smith kind of small. Like none of these guys
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so far are really Devonta Smith small. Like he weighs about as much as you do, if not a little bit less. Um,
I've
but
gained a
yeah,
lot of weight over the last couple of months. I'm surprised myself.
yeah, you've been beefing up. Um,
Evidently.
but yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Golden is being people are enjoying him more because he never really. I mean, if you're supposed to be this great receiver for the pros, I mean, or else the class is just terrible. He never crossed 1,000 yards in college.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he was in Texas, so he's got the greatest quarterback in the world who kept the Manning boy off the field, but he still couldn't cross 1,000 yards. Whereas the kid in you're looking at Bird in there who on a down year, he still had, he had a terrible year with 676, but people are going, oh, it's because the quarterbacks were
Yes.
terrible, not
They were
he
awful.
was there.
Awful.
So I mean, they're saying it's just inconsistent. So his route running is being touted good. So this guy could, that's how they touted Keenan Allen. Like route running was his catch. So maybe Burden falls into that kind of archetype. People are seeing what he's doing without the ball, and that makes him more valuable. But I'm more intrigued by him. Usually, I don't mind the small person, the small receiver, but they're also the deep receiver. I don't really want in fantasy because that's that guy you need to have in your flex that you're hoping he gets a long bomb. He's your old Deshaun Jackson, who he's our archetype of that, right? He either got you like 32 points, Tyler Lockett just got released, but who you're like, I'm gonna get 70 points or three. So it's hard to take the deep threat, whereas you need the guy in the middle, a little bit the possession guy, and if Burden's that good of a route runner, he could end up being that kind of a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last guy receiver I got here is this one's a little bigger. It's Trey Harris out of Ole Smith. Jackson Dart's a favorite receiver. He was 6'2", 205. So I mean, he's got the height. He has 60 catches for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, it is Ole Miss, so I mean, it's not like they're a high flying offense. He probably ran in the high threes too, just like everybody else has so far for me. So, but yeah, I mean, he looked good. I mean, he could definitely get open. He could definitely get open. I mean, he's able to get down the field, decent route running. He can go up and get the ball. I mean, like I say, he's your typical outside. I feel like he's your typical outside receiver in today's NFL. So we'll see how that goes. Might even be able to put him in the slot. And a lot of even the slot these days, a lot of these guys are even on the bigger side. With with the way these NFL teams are throwing these days, you need as many receivers as possible. I'm not too overly excited for Harris. I mean, he's a little older. He's 23 years old. He played at Louisiana Tech first, and then he went to Ole Miss. So we'll see how it turns out. I still feel like all these receivers are probably going to be dropping down to like the end of the second in your fantasy drafts, just due to the fact that there's so many good running backs. So I think you said it earlier. Are you interested in taking a wide receiver in the second, or are you just probably just going to wait till the third?
If we're taking like I think some of these guys are going to sneak up into the because it depends if you're super flex or not. If you're not super flex, I am a firm believer in dynasty drafts, and I get caught in the trap. We all do. You take the best player. It's dynasty. I don't care if your team needs a running back. If my team needs a running back, Malik Neighbors is on the board. I'm not going to take the guy that I should take in the fourth round because all the good running backs are gone. I'm going to take the best player. I'm going to take Malik Neighbors right there. And I think a lot of people miss on that because they think redraft mode, whereas that's why I got a trade on the board to get up into the top four of a superflex draft, thinking I can get Henderson, which is probably a good bet this round. But if I move down two picks, what I really want to take, I don't need a receiver, but a guy isn't trading with me there because he's thinking, hey, I'll get Tet at number four, and I'm like, you don't want McMillan at number four. You want to take Henderson there because you know it's going to be the two quarterbacks, whether I like them or not, because they're quarterbacks. And then you're going to have Genty probably going, there's the top three. So Henderson be four and then going on. But it really is, we got to, you got to rethink if you're going to grow in a dynasty, no matter what you got, because you can trade any good asset. As opposed, if they're close, you do it. But we you don't you don't reach in a dynasty. If these guys make your list after the draft, like say Trey Harris goes somewhere that's just absolutely amazing. You're like, oh my goodness, he is taking over the number two role in Tampa, a team name we don't usually throw out. Baker's had a good year. Mike Evans gets like quadruple team and still gets 1,000 yards on one last catch, and someone's going to replace Chris Godwin because they're not going to pay him. So put him in that role. Boom, he's already moved up to number two on the board because I don't think Tech could go anywhere. I think he's going to be one regardless because like everybody's in love with the dude. Tech goes to the Jets to be right beside your boy
Garrett
Garrett
Wilson.
Wilson, and he to me he goes down to number 32. So, but I mean he'll still go high. He's still, but you know
Well,
what
I
I mean?
mean,
Not really,
if
but
if
it's
Ted
hard.
McMillan ends up with the Raiders, because I mean they need a wide receiver. I think that's going to. I know we mentioned the
Geno
Raiders.
Smith, baby,
I know we mentioned the
greatest guy.
Raiders a lot, but I mean a team without a wide receiver like the Raiders. I mean, you fit this guy in there. I feel like he's going to be drafted pretty. I think he'll go top
Well,
five.
the
I mean,
Titans don't have a wide receiver either. What if he goes to Tennessee? You want to draft
they
him
might
there?
they might
So
drop
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, I'd be scared with all these guys where they land. I mean, if
I,
Travion Henderson ends up someplace where he's sharing the backfield and he's not the 100% starter, I mean, he's going to drop a little bit too. I mean, I still think Mario Hampton goes before Travion Henderson, but more of a
Oh,
Hampton
sorry.
guy than him.
Sorry. I meant Hampton. That's who I was talking about. Sorry, I
Yeah.
got Hampton's but Hampton's the guy who I have at fourth.
Oh, okay.
I saw one thing where Tet went to Dallas on a mock draft. The whole CD Lamb situation again. Or no, I'm sorry.
Honestly, I think Dallas could work out for him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, that'd be
opposite
good. Yeah, that'd be great
Yeah,
for him.
opposite CeeDee Lamb, I think
Unfair.
that'd be a prime spot. And I think again, I think he has the ability. I think he's going to be like the number five guy drafted here. I mean, right after Hampton. So
Oh
I
yeah, I think
think
so
that
too.
I think it's gonna be a good spot for him. All right, I got one tight end. This is another young guy. I was surprised at how young this guy was. That's Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I know Ty Warren's been receiving a lot of hype, but this guy's 2 years younger. In Michigan with a team that doesn't really throw the ball a lot. 56 catches, 582 yards, and five touchdowns, 6'5", 248. So he's big. He can block. He can block because he went to Michigan. I mean, that's what you kind of do at
Yeah.
Michigan. So you can block. He can definitely catch. He had the 56, and he's 20 years old coming into the draft. I think he might be one of those guys. You might have to wait a year before he can actually, maybe a two before he starts bursting out. But in those 2 years, you can be 22 years old, and the next thing you know, you got a top tight end for the next 8 years. So I'm very interested in him. I think if you're in your fantasy drafts, I think this guy is going to be possibly at the end of the first round,
Mhm.
at the top of the second. So, I mean, you got Ty Warren probably going to be, around pick 6, 7, or 8, and then Colston Loveland be right there at the end. So, I mean, I think this guy's going to be quite. I don't know about if you could say a steal. If he's still going in the first round, but I think you can be. I think you're going to be surprised with how this guy ends up ultimately playing out. Like, just don't expect a lot in the beginning. Um, but the fact that he can block, that's going to give him the advantage to being on the field. So, I mean, if you're on the field, I mean, that's really all you can ask for, correct?
Yeah, I think that's, and I think with tight ends too, regardless. I mean, you're not going to, Brock Bowers, there's going to be a couple guys like that. Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta, but that is not, and that's an anomaly in the tight end world. I mean, I mean, look at Jonnu Smith. He was like the number four guy. It took him how long to come out? So it's sometimes, I mean, you probably dumped him by at that point anyway, but you're looking at arguably one of the greatest tight ends in history. Gronk started out as a blocking back and then
Yeah,
became he had the 10 touchdowns his rookie year, so that helped him. So, but coming in as a blocking back gives you that value. That's a good point there with him. If you can block, you're on the field. That's
yeah,
step one to becoming a good
yeah,
receiver. Gronk didn't because he
absolutely.
Gronk was supposed to not be the receiving back. Aaron Hernandez was that. So Loveland falls into that situation. He's young. He can learn. I mean, you get him this young, you've got you got your number two tight end for 3 years, then a starting tight end for another 10. Boom, you don't have to draft one. You're great in the tight end world, and that would be spectacular. Once again, he'll probably be a Raider too because they just keep adding tight ends to their
Yeah.
roster. So Mike Mayer was supposed to be good. They'll draft it, no, but nah, he would be a sneaky little nice pick, and tight ends apparently got more value. Another note that I read the other day was Tommy Trimble. Remember that name from a couple years ago?
Yeah, I
He
do
just
remember that
signed a
name.
2 year. What was it? He's getting like $6 or $7 million a year for the Panthers, and I was like, what?
Well,
They got the young
with
kid
the,
too.
with the amount of
Years.
money that the cap that with the
Went
cap
up
has went up, I mean, these guys are
300. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, these guys are just constantly getting paid, being able to get paid more and more money, which obviously is going to have to be. I mean, the way the quarterbacks are going, but yeah, I think I'm sitting here talking about him. I think I keep talking myself more and more into him. At the end of that first round, I think that would
yeah.
be a good spot for him.
Because you're a good team at that point too. So like I would
Yeah,
hate to be a rebuild or like at 2-1, I wouldn't want him because unless I've traded picks. So if I'm
yeah,
that
yeah.
2-1 team, I'm that team that needs everything. So I'm like, I don't want to get a tight end yet when I know I need everything in the world. But if he's once again, if he's the best guy on the board, I'm going to take him. So he could move up and down with me. I mean, I, I've got to change my philosophy. I wasn't a tight end guy and it messed me up last year. Oopsie.
Yeah, I've never been too much of a tight end guy either. As far as when
In
it
rookie
comes to
drafts. I love them, buddy.
drafts, I don't think I've ever. I mean, I drafted Kyle Pitts once, but I mean that was in a startup when I got him. So it really wasn't a rookie draft. Like I said, I've never really. This could be actually the first time I would draft a tight end. Um, you know, in a in the first round of a rookie draft. But I mean, I'm kind of excited about this guy. Um, any thoughts overall on how you take, as far as like in the second round? Are you definitely in on the second round, or are you possibly trying to just maybe get out of the second round, maybe trade your second for maybe and try to get up and move a little higher in the first?
At this point, there's basically like the early first running backs, and after that, if I can get an established, I'm a established NFL player guy, which is why I don't have a lot of draft capital usually.
Yeah.
I'll trade. I got a couple of these where I have nothing, and I'm debating if I'm gonna trade just to play the game. But I got calls today, man. But it's one of those like I wouldn't give up. If I'm sitting there in the second round, I'll grab someone unless someone because that's last year I traded up in the second round to get Penix in a super flex league. Or no. Yeah, super because nobody grabbed me. I was like, oh heck yeah, I'm throwing him on my team. So I've moved up some spots. And it depends upon how the board falls too, what leagues you're interested in. But I mean, you're crap shooting after the first couple. I mean, you're crap shooting regardless, but it's not the third round. But if it's a running back, I'm in on that in the second round, but if all the decent running backs are gone, and I'm having to, get some random, and it might even be that kid from Tech who ends up, say the kid from Tech is sitting over there and for the Chargers or something weird. You're like, I'm gonna keep an eye on them, keep an
Yeah,
eye
that'd
on
be
him. I
fun.
mean, what we've learned in the last couple of years is it doesn't. I would get worried because a guy went to a team that already had a running back. The Dolphins are probably going to draft a running back, and I'm gonna be like, no, I don't want them because I like Achan. Well, it's probably a good bet to get the guy that goes to Miami because apparently they weren't super high on Wright as we were because they didn't give him enough run, especially when Mostert sucked. So they might get a big boy in there too, and that could, they might get one of these giant dudes in there to run over some people and save their better athletic running back in there. And all it takes is one tweak, and all of a sudden you have an RB, top 10 RB coming out of that.
Yeah, it's all about opportunity, and we know how. I feel like last year, as far as running back goes, kind of anomaly. They didn't seem to get hurt as much. I mean, there were still some injuries, but I feel like overall they were a little safer last year, and I don't think you can really rely on that. But like it's just like running backs, just every year there's so many get an opportunity, and if they get that opportunity and run with it, I mean, it's hard. It's really, really hard to go away
Mhm.
from them. So you want these guys on your team, and like I said, running backs, you just need them, or you just feel comfortable when you've got a lot of running backs on your
Yeah,
team.
always piles.
So yeah. So any final thoughts?
No, I just thought about something. I got a little excitement. There is a chance we might get into Scotty Fishbowl next year.
Oh,
I
nice.
got an email this week. I did something on Underdog I forgot about. And if you got to the finals, I didn't even pay attention to it. You get to the finals, I think you got a free entry is the way it's reading. So I was like, we might be able to talk about the Scott Fishbowl finally 6 years
Oh.
later. I was like, oh, it made my day. I was having a long day. I'm like, oh, then, holy cow, this is awesome. After hearing all the guys talk about it. So the Fantasy Couriers might get a little Scott Fishbowl action. We'll see if this all pans out the way it looks like it will. So fun
Yeah,
news. But on rookies, I'm in the you pique my interest with guys. I look at them and then it could totally be wrecked if they go somewhere where it just doesn't make sense to like some teams just drafting like what the Raiders did for so long, or or some team just it's how I felt. I saw Kirk Cousins yesterday. How people felt when he got drafted. I jokingly went to somebody and said, "Hey, the Skins just drafted their best quarterback this year." I was
yeah,
right, but I'm not going to draft him in a fantasy draft, even though I really liked him in college. Um, and that sort of wrecks sort of his value, and then you'll get him off waivers later and play him or whatnot. But I mean, you got him off waivers a year later, or we're in our DC, so somebody had him. So that's going to be a big factor as to how these guys move up and down, who you're excited about. If one guy becomes like if jokingly the Raiders do take one of these top two tight ends,
yeah,
you're not they went
yeah,
because Bowers is that good. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
hard.
that's
It's hard.
yeah, that's kind of what my words of wisdom were going to be. Try not to fall in love with these guys too early. I mean, get to know them, but don't fall in love with them too early to the point where you're like definitely going to draft these guys no matter what, because all it takes is just one bad, a bad spot they get picked in the draft, and you're like, oh man, I really really like this guy, but he got picked, he got drafted to a bad spot. Now, do I really really like him as much as I thought I did? So I think then you kind of got to veer to maybe that next guy who landed in a little better spot that you didn't like, that you really didn't like as much. So
Hmm.
you just want to be flexible. Of course, we're all going to have guys we like. We're all going to have guys we don't like. But when it comes to where they're being drafted, just be flexible and just notice the opportunity. If these guys get it, there might be an opportunity that they can run with it. So as always, trust yourself and trust the process.